Hello there and welcome to another tier list video, and like my other tier list videos, I've always done based on something that I enjoy, and in this case it is LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga, which in my opinion is the best LEGO game that there has ever been. None have ever surpassed it in my opinion, although LEGO Batman 1 did come close. I do love that game a lot. So for this ranking, or this tier list, I'm going to go through all the levels and base them on how much I enjoyed them, how much I didn't enjoy them. So from S tier to all the way to F tier. Now there is another tier, which is the U tier, which is the unrankable tier in my opinion. I've only put two on there, and that's the two LEGO City levels, because I don't really consider them levels. I consider them more like sandbox modes to do for a bit of fun. I don't really care for them that much, if I'm perfectly honest. So I'm going to go through them in chronological order, and I will be including the extra missions, or the ones which are recreations, or the original versions, I should say, of them, because there are some differences here and there. So starting off with the Phantom Menace, and this is the first one, which is negotiations, and what a fantastic start this is. I absolutely love negotiations, and maybe, just maybe, it's because of the fact that maybe it's because of the fact that it is like the first level, and of course, as it's the first level, it is the one level that you're going to remember probably the most. But even for a first level, this is just a really fun level to go through. Everything from the first room that you're in with the table and the chairs, which you can play around with. The cutscene opening, which is it was surprisingly quite funny when you hear the two LEGO figures just drop to the ground after their ship is blown up. And like the intruder alert and the droids coming in, you just battle them in the hallway. It's such a great opening. Really goes to show how shit the Skywalker Saga really was. Yes, by the way, I am going to be criticizing Skywalker Saga quite a lot whenever I get the chance, just because it's fun to poke fun at how disappointing that game was. Especially when considering this is such a better game. It's quite a short level. It's not an incredibly long level, negotiations. You know, you basically go from point A to point B, but it allows the player, allows the person who's playing it, most likely a child, to, learn the basics. This is how you use the force powers, these are the enemies, this is how you fight them, this is what happens when you do fight them. You can play around with these bits around the side, and look what happens, you might get a mini kit. Here's a protocol droid, here's how you open certain doors. It's a great introductory level that teaches the player a few little things here and there, but it also manages to be just fun in general. It's also a very visually appealing level. Like, I will say this about the Phantom Menace in general. The Phantom Menace levels are probably the most visually appealing levels in the entire game. I just love the look of the Phantom Menace levels. They just look so nice and pretty. And this is definitely a fantastic level. It's a great short level, great introductory level, and personal bias, probably I am actually going to put this in S tier. I really like it that much. Next up is the second level, and obviously, I had a bit of personal bias with the first level. This one, I won't lie, upon reflection, this isn't as great. For me, this is probably the weakest of the Phantom Menace levels, discounting Anakin's flight. The invasion of Naboo, basically, you're just going around. You get Jar Jar. It's another short level. It's not huge. But you don't really do a whole lot. Like with Jar Jar, they do give you like these high platforms to teach the player like certain characters can jump higher than others. And I guess that's interesting, But I think the visuals in this level aren't that great, especially considering like the Phantom Menace levels in general are very visually appealing, very, very visually beautiful. And then this one is kind of the weakest. It's just this jungly, swampy setting, and it's just not very appealing. I don't really care for much that happens in it. In fact, there's not a lot that happens in it. You can get this level done in only a few minutes, and there's not really much of a challenge. Even with the certain droids that occasionally pop through, not really much happens. Jar Jar is only really useful for a few segments. Other than the high jumping segments, he is practically useless. He doesn't fight. He can't fight at all. There's no switches that he can use either. Yeah, and I even think like the ending of this level is quite awkward. Like I'm mostly thinking about when I was a kid playing this game, and when I was a kid, you know, maybe I'm a bit retarded, but when I was a kid, I used to get confused on how to end the level, because how you end the level is literally just walking into the ocean. And that's it. But it's not that clear. I won't lie. It's not that clear. Like, unless you know what to do, you wouldn't really know. And especially because you have to go like a certain distance into the sea. Honestly, Invasion of Naboo is, in my opinion, the weakest of the Phantom Menace levels. Although Anakin's fight is weaker. I'm going to put it in D tier because it's not dreadful. It's... Well, okay, I might put it in E tier. It's not dreadful, like it's not F tier, but it isn't very good. Next up is the Feed Palace level. This time you learn how to shoot, because first time you have a character with a gun. And I think this is a decent level. I like the idea of like starting off in like a courtyard and moving yourself up to the rooftops. I like how you meet up with the Jedi later on, even though it doesn't really make much sense considering the fact that the way the level opens up is you start off with the Jedi, like, beating up a bunch of droids with everyone struggling to get his lightsaber on, which is quite a humorous scene. I never really understood why we started off with Amidala and Captain Panaki, I think his name is. I never really understood that, but it's still a decent level, nonetheless. I think it's helped out by the visuals. The visuals are very appealing. I love shooting like the windows. I love the look of Naboo. It's just such a beautiful planet, Naboo. But again, this isn't that interesting. I do like the ending where you have to go through and like open up all these hatches to get the exit open. It's an okay level. I'm going to put this one probably in C tier. It's a very okay-ish level. Pardon. The first double levels, I guess you could say, because there is the original pod racer and the new pod racer. So for those that don't know, LEGO Star Wars, the complete saga, changed a few of the LEGO Star Wars 1 levels, and the pod racer is one of them, because the original pod racer level, which is the first one that I've got up, it was a lot more difficult. You couldn't risk getting hit once or else you just die. You smash into any of the rocks, you just die. There's no real, it was an incredibly difficult level back in the day. And I remember when I was a kid, I struggled with this level. But I still think it's appealing, and I just love pod races in general. I love the pod race scene in Phantom Menace. I love the pod race game, which was released on like the PlayStation 1, I believe. I just love the pod races in general. I love the pod racing level. It's not a very hard level. I won't lie. That the original was slightly harder. It had a little bit of difficulty, and the remake, it does ease things a little bit. The controls are much better, I believe. And of course, the difficulty is subside, but it's still such a great level. I genuinely love the pod racing levels. The original I'm going to put in like B tier because its difficulty was a little bit harsh, but the new version I'm putting in A tier because I just love the pod races. The pod racing levels are just a lot of fun. I don't know what else to say. They're fun levels. I truly do enjoy them. I love the idea that you have to like get ahead of certain like pod races, and then you eventually fight Sebulba at the end, and it's just a race to the end, and if you fail then you have to redo it again from a checkpoint, which is fine by me. I just love it. It's a very unique level. It's a very unique level compared to other flying levels in LEGO Star Wars. Next up is the second of the Naboo levels, or third technically. I know it is the third Naboo level, but it's the second of the Feed Palace levels, and this is the Retake Feed Palace. I love this level. I think this is a far bigger improvement over the previous Feed Palace level. This one, in my opinion, is just a lot of fun. You start off in the courtyard once again. You shoot a bunch of droids. There's droids everywhere by this point. You have to do all these puzzles where you have to work together as a team. Each character has their own unique ability. Like Anakin, he's a kid. He can go through small crates. R2, of course, can float. The Jedi can use force powers, obviously, and of course, Padme can use her blaster. And I think it really does a good job at utilizing all these different like character powers, I guess you could say. It's a really well balanced level in that sense. I love that you can like work together to create these like passages to get onto these buttons and press them and go ahead with the level. There's a lot of enemies, of course, to give you a bit of challenge, but obviously the ending is a lot of fun as well. I like the idea that you have to like rescue all these Naboo starfighters from captivity, and save them one by one. You get them onto their Naboo starfighters, and then you can finally exit the level. This is a very good level. It's quite a longer level compared to the previous few Phantom Menace levels, but it's worth it. It is really worth it. I genuinely think this is a good level. I'm gonna put it just below the pod racer, because I love the pod racers too much. Pod racer bias. So this next level is one of the first extra levels, and this level wasn't in the original game. However, it was planned for the original game. For those who don't know, Anakin's flight was meant to have been a level in the original LEGO Star Wars. They cut it out because time constraint, and also because there was going to be way too many levels for the Phantom Menace. And honestly, I'm curious on what the original would have been like, because obviously the original LEGO Star Wars, it worked along the basis of on-rail shooters, basically, the flying levels. So, the player was being forcefully taken around with the camera forcing the player forwards. And a lot of people, including myself, do prefer that over the, LEGO Star Wars 2 flying levels, which just aren't as good. And this uses the LEGO Star Wars 2 flying mechanics, so you're basically flying free will, which I guess is a good thing for some people. And then you use torpedoes to blow open some doors, and you basically repeat that multiple times, and then you finally use torpedo to blow up the main center of the Trade Federation mothership. And that isn't very appealing. If I'm perfectly honest, this is a very boring level. It's a fun little extra level, and you do get the Naboo starfighter, but it's a very boring level. Had this been in the game, this probably would have been my least favorite of the Phantom Menace levels. It's not very good, but I do think that it is a lot better than... I say it's my least favorite. I say it's a little bit better than the other Phantom Menace level, which was the Invasion of Naboo. Invasion of Naboo was a little bit lame, all things considered, whereas this one, at least there's something happening, at least there's a little bit fun. It's not challenging at all. Like, it's dead easy. I don't know, like, I'm curious on what the original would have been like, because I have it in my head that you would have been like, obviously because it's more of an on-rail shooter, you would have been taken around like the outside, and eventually you would have dive bombed. You probably would have had to shoot down the doors, go inside, and then shoot down some more doors, make your further progress, and then you fire upon like the center for a bit, and then you fly out. I'm betting you that probably would have been like the idea, similar to the Battle Coruscant level, which comes later on. I don't know, like this one I've got mixed feelings on. I'm going to put it like in D tier, because it's not dreadful by any stretch of the imagination, but it isn't very appealing. It's not very enjoyable. What is appealing, however, and this is certainly one of the best levels in the entire game, is the Darth Maul fight. The Darth Maul fight is not only one of the best LEGO boss fights in LEGO Star Wars, but it's just such a great level in general. It's one of the best levels in general. So aside from the badass scene when Darth Maul appears, and of course you go into the fight, you not only have that, you have, of course, the progression throughout this area. Like, you don't just sit in one area and fight Darth Maul, you actually go across this area. And I love that. I love how it begins with Darth Maul just throwing stuff at you. It's very simple, and you have to deflect the bolts from the battle droids and fix a bridge to get across. You can play around in that area if you want for a little bit. And then you enter this next area where you have to do some jumping puzzles. It sort of like comes back around from like the previous few levels. This is like everything you learned up to this point being tested. And then you get into the, I don't know what it's called, but it's some like, I don't know what it's called, but the reactor area with the purple beams and the floating orbs. I love that area so much. Battle some more battle droids. You create a bridge across. You continue chasing after Darth Maul. And then you get to the final segment where you fight Maul. It isn't straightforward, just slash him. He jumps up onto platforms, throws stuff at you, throw it back, and he eventually gets knocked down to a point that you have to, whittle his health down. And then you fight him. He'll, use the force to push one of you away, and the other one will have to come in to help. And I just love this level. Like, there is so much happening in this one battle, and it's just so good. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I don't like, Skywalker Saga that much, because, when it did try to recreate some of these scenes, it made it worse. It made it less appealing. It wasn't as impressive as, say, this one, which, ironically enough, is even funnier than the Skywalker Saga, where it tries to force humor, like, here's Darth Maul's head, trying to kill Obi-Wan at the end. That's so funny, guys. Ha ha ha. Whereas this one manages to do humor a little bit better. With all the characters like lined up and they see Darth Maul and he'll poke their heads out. Somehow that's funnier than what we got in Skywalker Saga. Seriously, the humor sucks in that game. So yeah, overall, the Phantom Menace has a decent range of levels, in my opinion. The first and last level are obviously the best. However, the pod racer and the retake Thieves Palace is fantastic. The second and third level sort of dwindle a little bit. Second level in particular, and the extra level isn't that exciting. But unfortunately, we have Attack of the Clones next, which, unfortunately for Attack of the Clones, it has two of the worst levels in the whole game. And starting off is one of the worst levels, which is, I believe it's called Bounty Hunter Pursuit, where you're chasing after Zam. This level sucks. There's no doubt in my mind. This level just sucks. I always debate whether this one or the level that's coming up is worse, because like, what's interesting about this level is this is another one of those levels that was cut from the original game. So the original game had only 5 levels for Attack of the Clones, as the other two had 6. And this one would have been the first level, but instead, in the original game, the first level ended up being the Kamino level. And why this one was cut, most likely due to budgetary reasons or time ran out. And honestly, what they did when they brought it back for the complete saga, they should have done a better job. Like, this is just such a boring level. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's a repetitive level. You go through, the city skylines of Coruscant, and then you reach this area where there's a bunch of tractor beams and it's blocking the path, and somehow you can't just go over it. You have to blow up with torpedoes, which is really fucking boring. I hate the Lego Star Wars 2 flying missions so much, and they utilize that here. It's repetitive. You do that multiple times, and then you finally shoot Zam out of the sky in a mini boss fight, which isn't very hard. Like, literally, all you have to do is hold down the fire button. This level is repetitive. It's boring. It is dull in every sense of the word. I hate it. It sucks. It goes into F tier. In comparison is the original first level for Attack of the Clones, which in this case is the second level for Attack of the Clones, which is Kamino, which to a lot of people is one of the best levels, and for very obvious reasons. The music in this level is fantastic. I love the Kamino music. It does a good job at using both R4 and Obi-Wan effectively. Not only that, but the progression from going outside and going inside, and the visually beautiful like Kamino Clone Factory is just beautiful. I love the white marble surfaces of everything, the walls and sides, etc. And as you make further progress, you meet Jango Fett, and you fight Jango Fett for a bit, and he sends out these drones, which it's interesting that the drones never got a minifigure in the game. Like, all the other enemies always got, like, a figure of them. The drones never did. Like, I would have been interested... Like, the drones would have been at least somewhat useful. They wouldn't have been hugely useful, but they would have been somewhat useful, like, shoot, because they could fire a laser. Or blast, I should say. But instead, they had the PK droid, which... Yeah, PK droid, drone. I'd say the drone is far more useful than the PK droid. But I digress. Like, you got those to deal with, and you go through that, and you go outside for a bit, and go back in. There's bombs on this bridge area. You have to jump across. You got to use R4 to help make some progress. Everything is helpful in this. Everything is, run smoothly, and eventually you get to the Jango Fett Boba Fett fight, which is such a great fight. It's a great boss fight. Boba Fett is in the ship dealing with you, and you have to deal with him. Jango Fett is shooting missiles at you and shooting you. Great stuff. Truly great stuff. It sort of like comes back around if you think about it. Like, you start off in the rain and you end in the rain. And I love seeing all the clones. I love how the baby clones in the test tubes are literally just bricks. It's just hilarious. Visually beautiful level, fantastic music, and it's great at using two characters at once. Great boss fight. Everything about this level is really good. It's not as good as Darth Maul. I think Darth Maul is a better level, but this is such a great level. If this was the introductory level again, like it was in the original, then this would have been a great introduction to Attack of the Clones. Next up is one of my personal favorite levels, and this is the Droid Factory. I love the Droid Factory so much. The Droid Factory is where you have, you go through the Genesisian Droid Factory, you're with Padme and Anakin, you eventually get R2 and eventually C-3PO for the first time. And I just love the setting of this. You're having to be on this conveyor belt. You have to avoid all these droids trying to kill you. You have to avoid all these crushers and what have you. There's these platforms that will actually drop down if you aren't careful. The set piece is so great. You make your way forwards and you get to the Genesisian hives, and you see these Genesisians just fly out of their holes and trying to kill you. Once again, a lot of fun stuff. And then you end with, saving Obi-Wan only to then be captured. I personally really like the Droid Factory, but is it worthy enough to be in S tier? Now, I love Droid Factory a lot, but I'm still going to put it in S tier because I do genuinely love this level a lot. It's probably going to be at the bottom bit, but I just love how you go from one area to the next. I love how it's got a decent length to the level. I think the setting to the Droid Factory is great. I love the extra areas that you can go to if you want to explore them to get mini kits, etc. I think this is just a very well made level overall. I think it utilizes all the characters in an effective way. Padme less so, I'd argue, but she's still useful. I love that you can use the smoldering pots to carry the characters across. It's just such a great level. It really is. Part of me does feel like there could have been a lot more, don't get me wrong, but it's such a great level. I genuinely love the Droid Factory. Now, next up is probably one of the most recreated LEGO levels ever, and that is the Genesisian Arena, which is, I believe, called Jedi Battle in the game. Now, this level has been recreated in LEGO Star Wars, the Clone Wars. It has been recreated in the Skywalker Saga, and ironically enough, this first attempt was probably their best one. And even then, it's not perfect. For one thing, you don't get the Xenu or the Ackley or whatever the Rhino thing was called, unless the Rhino thing was called the Ackley, I don't remember. I think the Ackley was the Mantis thing and the Xenu was the Tiger thing with the mini eyes. I digress. You don't get those. And I do think it's strange that, despite there being loads of Jedi in this arena, you don't play as any other Jedi other than Mace Windu at the beginning. I feel like they could have used, maybe Ki-Adi-Mundi or Shaak Ti. That would have been interesting. But nonetheless, it's ironic how this is the best version of the Genesisian arena battle in any of the LEGO games. what the hell happened? Like, in Lego Star Wars The Clone Wars, they at least try to spice it up. They, you start off with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme. You have to all work together to break the chains and, help things out. That's kind of fun. I love how the arena just fills up with droids. But at the same time, it just isn't as exciting as this one. And then Skywalker Saga just basically said, fuck all that, just go straight to a Jango Fett fight. And yeah, once again, didn't even bother with the levels with Skywalker Saga. But this one, at least, you have a lot of progression. You save all the main characters, i.e. Padme, Obi-Wan, and Anakin, one by one. You get through that, then you fight a bunch of droids, certain droids like super battle droids, the red security droids, droidicas, and eventually you battle Jango Fett, which is a very easy, just throw a rocket at him. It's not as hard as the Kamino fight, which the Kamino fight, in my opinion, was a little bit trickier, although there are mines. There are mines that will blow up and will kill you if you aren't careful. Still, a very good level, this. It's very short. It's a very easy level, especially when you're trying to get mini kits and other extra bits, like the red bricks. This is a very easy level in that sense. You get tons of Jedi after this, which is great. And it's ironic how they got this level right the first time round and fucked up every other time. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Although, I won't lie, the Clone Wars one isn't that bad. It's just not as good. I'm going to put this one... like in B tier, because it is a very simple level. Unfortunately, we have Gunship Cavalry next. This level is infamous for being one of the most hated levels in LEGO Star Wars. It may not be the worst LEGO Star Wars level of all time. I mean, that goes to Resistance Resistance base in The Force Awakens, although there was that crappy one, or several crappy ones in Skywalker Saga, if you can even call them levels. But this one, there's two versions of this. You have the original version, which is the first one I've got on here, which was the one in the original LEGO Star Wars, which was noted to be extremely, and I repeat, extremely difficult. So for those who don't know, I've already mentioned, but LEGO Star Wars used to have, when it came to flying missions, used to be like more or less on-rail shooters. The camera would be moving, the ship would automatically move with it. And with Gunship Cavalry, it was the same case. With Gunship Cavalry, you had to avoid the lasers, and the camera would be panning, so you would have to keep up with the camera and time your movements effectively, and you shoot down the doors, and you you shoot down these like satellite things inside, and you make your way through, and you have to be quick about it, or else you're just going to get crushed to death, and you have to restart the area again. It was a very difficult level. I hated that level when I was a kid, and it was one of those levels that made me rage quit quite a bit because I hated it that much. But I take that level over the remake, the complete Saga version, which is using the LEGO Star Wars 2 star gameplay. Fuck me, is this a terrible gameplay? Like, in that one, you have to use bombs. It's easy enough to avoid like a lot of the hazards, even though they can be annoying. And, just by firing and holding down the fire button. But you have to use bombs to blow up the gates to get them open. To make matters worse, you have these laser grids still there. The layout is pretty much all the same. But the lasers and everything else will literally cut off the tow. So the bomb you're towing will be severed, and you have to fetch it every 5 seconds. And you have to travel quite a distance to get over to these gates as well. It's repetitive and annoying. The challenge isn't really there, but it's a tedious task. And the finale forces you to use bombs even more, blowing up the lasers to blow up these blue generator things to bring down the big orb ship. Boy, does Gunship Cavalry suck. Is it as bad, I should say, as Bounty and Pursuit? I don't know. Bounty and Pursuit is a very boring and lifeless level. Gunship Cavalry is a bad level, like the remake version. I'm going to put the remake version like just ahead of Bounty Hunter Pursuit, because I think Bounty Hunter Pursuit is a far worse level, if I can do that. Whereas the original version of Gunship Cavalry, it was difficult. I didn't like it. I think it goes in D tier. I'm going to put it in like E tier. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to be cheeky and put it there. Unfortunately, Attack of the Clones levels don't really improve very much. I mean, they are a little bit improved, and that is the Count Dooku fight. Compared to Darth Maul's battle, which is a really good level, this level is disappointing. There's not a lot you do before you fight Count Dooku. Like, unlike the Darth Maul one, where you're pursuing him through all these different areas, and there's all these different like things that you can do, and it's such a lot of fun. This one, there's not a lot of that. Here you enter the cave system where he's hiding, after chasing after him. I think this level is more infamous for that meme where like you have to sacrifice yourself to get the mini kit, or if you're intelligent, you go in free play mode, get R2 or Django or Boba, and you fly over and grab it that way. But yeah, for a final level, this kind of sucks. It's not as good as the Darth Maul fight at all. You basically have to go inside, you open a door, and then you fight Count Dooku. The fight itself is easy. It's a slightly different, slightly more challenging, I guess, than Darth Maul's fight. Whereas Darth Maul's fight, it wasn't that challenging at all. Whereas this one, he will jump around, he will use electric, he will have like this force field around him to push anyone away so no one can get close to him. You have to swap characters. I do like the fact that you do swap characters with from Anakin to Yoda midway through, which is kind of fun. But yeah, this is a very lame level. And I'm gonna put it like, I'm gonna put this one in E tier as well. This is like, it's not F tier bad, but it's still pretty rough. It's still a pretty weak level. Yeah, Attack of the Clones has 2 very good levels, and then everything else is kind of, not very good. Next up, however, is Battle Coruscant, the level which Skywalker Saga decided to completely skip over because they'd rather insert memes and gags and open world stuff rather than actual gameplay and levels. Game fucking sucks. I'm gonna die on that hill. I don't care. Anyways, enough shitting on Skywalker Saga. The complete saga, on the other hand, has Battle Coruscant, which, I won't lie, this is probably my favorite space mission. It's a very easy level. Like, it is very easy. All you do is hold down the fire button, dodge things coming your way, or try not to smack into the side of a spacecraft. There's chaos everywhere, like fighter ships everywhere. You see all these laser beams firing all over the place. It is hectic. It's easy. You can get pretty much all the mini kits, the red brick, in one go. Like, you don't even need to go in free play mode. Although you do unlock quite a lot of stuff in free play mode as a result of this level. It's a fun level. It is a fun level. That's all that I can really say about it. It's a fun level, very easy. You shoot down like the gates. It's an on-rail shooter basically, so it's one of the better space missions. I love this level a lot. It's fun. It's not, let's be honest, it isn't hard at all, but it's fun. It's going to go in a high B tier because it is just such a dead simple level that it doesn't really have much challenge, which is very ironic because the game doesn't really have much challenge to begin with, but this is probably the easiest level in the entire game. Like, you do not struggle whatsoever, but it is a lot of fun at the same time. And it is just, and here's the thing about Battle Coruscant. If you want to get money to buy like the more expensive items in the shop, replay this level. Just replay this level over and over again. You can get like almost 1 million studs in one go. Like, it is so fucking easy to get money, or studs I should say, in this level. Next up is a rather underrated level in my opinion. This is the Rescue the Chancellor level. Don't remember the name precisely of this level, unfortunately, but the second level for Revenge of the Sith, and this is such an underrated and brilliant level. Like, this is superb in my opinion. This is quite a long level, all things considered. Like, you start off in the where you've crashed the ships, you go ahead, you enter like this like dark area, you eventually find the Chancellor, and you fight Dooku, you kill him once and for all. Eventually, after killing him, you go forwards and you escape like this thing that's charging down the hallway as you're running down the elevator shaft. That's a lot of fun. And then eventually you fight the Magna Guards and chase after Grievous, but Grievous escapes and you crash the ship down and everything is sound. There's a lot going on in this level. There's a lot of enemies, a lot of like areas to explore, like the hallways of the Invisible Hand. I believe that's the name of this area. And I just love this. I love this level so much. Like, it's an underrated level because not a lot of people talk about it at all. It does use some deleted like features from the original Revenge of the Sith, which never made it into the actual final film, such as the fact that the elevator shaft is like falling down and they happen to outrun it. There's a lot going on in this level. Like, it isn't just, point A to point B. There is, point A to point B to point C, point D to point E. It's, you have a boss fight midway through. You have the Magna Guards, which prove to be quite a fearsome enemy. You have to outrun an elevator falling down. You have to quickly make your way across as the ship is falling apart. It is so hectic and it's so fun. Like, this in my opinion is another S tier. Like, I'm actually being honest. I think this is another S tier. And I think this goes right next to the Darth Maul fight. I think this is such a great fight. Unfortunately for Revenge of the Sith, it does sort of go downhill from here. The next level is the General Grievous fight, and this is such a disappointing fight. And I'll tell you why. The General Grievous fight is, in my opinion, such a lame level. It's such a lame battle. Like, compared to how good the Darth Maul fight was in the first game, and how good the Count Dooku fight was in this game, the second level, I should say. Not, I'm saying game, I should say episode. This is just lame. Like, you start off in this one area, and you're basically in that one area the whole time. You just damage Grievous a bit, he jumps away, you follow after him, you get him to go back to the center area, you beat him up some more, you keep doing it over and over again. It would have been far more interesting if you could chase Grievous around, like, the area, like you would like with Darth Maul. Like, you damage him for a bit, he then runs off. You chase after him, you enter like another set piece. That would have been so much more interesting than what we got, which is basically just fighting him in this one circular area with a rocky cliffside. Jeez, I can't speak. And that's it. This is such a boring level and such a disappointing level as well. Like, this could have been so much better. Like, this might be the worst of the prequel fights, in my opinion. And I was close to putting an F tier, but it doesn't piss me off as much as Gunship Cavalry and Bounty Hunter Pursuit. Like, at least this is decent. At least there is at least one like mini kit that you can go for, which is in this like specialized room where the Separatists have their meeting, which I think is such a great mini kit. There is that. But overall, what a disappointing level. This is close to F tier, but not that close. Unfortunately, we go even further down with the Barakashi. It's not as bad as the General Grievous fight. The General Grievous fight is worse, but this one is still pretty disappointing nonetheless. I don't know what it is about this level that I just don't like. Like, I have seen, before I did this tier list, I was looking at what other people thought of the levels, because it's quite interesting seeing like what people believe are bad or what people believe are good. And it's interesting seeing that this level is really despised by fans. Like, people really don't like the Battle Kashyyyk level at all. And I can understand why. Like, this is quite a confusing level start. Like, there's no real clear direction where you have to go or what you have to do. Like, to get a certain, like, door open, you have to, like, destroy a random flower. And there's a grapple hook area which you can use Chewbacca for to open up this gate. Now, there's loads of flowers all over the place that don't do anything. So the player, if you're just casually playing, probably won't bother touching that unless they, like, it's not really obvious for one thing. You have to build a walker, which is kind of cool, I guess, but you can't really take it anywhere. There is, of course, the other factor which I do really like, which is, it's not just the droids you're fighting, but also the clones. This is when Order 66 takes place. This is such a great moment. But it's somewhat down because it's just, like, if I'm perfectly honest, I'm not really a fan of the jungly area of Kashyyyk. Oh my. Pardon. But, like, it's, I don't know, like, it's kind of a boring level. It's kind of like a nothing level, if that makes sense. Like, it's not really much is memorable other than Order 66 takes place. You're fighting both clones and droids, which is kind of cool, but that's about it. It's a level. It's a level. I'm not going to put it in E tier because it isn't that bad. I'm going to put it, like, in D tier. It's a very mediocre level. Speaking of mediocre, we have the Fall of the Jedi. I believe that's the name of the level. It is technically a cut level, but it's also not a cut level because we do see Yoda and Obi-Wan just slicing apart clones. But it has a cut idea, which was the disguised clones. So in the original script, the clones were going to be disguised as Jedi, but they were there to trick other Jedi and shoot them down. Despite the fact that they all look the same. So this level is another one of those weird levels where it's like, it's not dreadful in any sense of the word. It's not like E tier, but it's not particularly memorable. It's not particularly fun to replay. This is like the closest we get to like a proper Coruscant level, aside from obviously, Bayonetta Pursuit and arguably Battle of Coruscant. But this is like the proper Coruscant level. Like, you're going through the Jedi Temple, and honestly, I feel like they kind of like it could have been better. They could have made it a lot more visually appealing, a lot more visually, interesting instead of what we got. And honestly, this is just not as good as it could have been. The clones are not really that much of a trouble. You don't really see much destruction, surprisingly. I mean, you see a few statues knocked over, you see some debris, that's about it, but it's not massive. You do get to see the Jedi council room, which is kind of cool, but again, like I said, this is a level that could have been a lot more than it could have been, and it wasn't, and it's kind of lackluster. It's another one of those dull levels. I'm just going to put it below the Battle of Kashyyyk. Now then, the duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which is, let's be honest now, the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest Star Wars duel in the films ever. Like, this is such a phenomenal fight in the films. And so, what do I think about it in terms of LEGO Star Wars? Now, a lot of people love this level a lot. Like, this one, when I was looking through like other people's rankings, this one would be like an S tier. Like, this is a really popular level. And I like it a lot. Don't get me wrong, I like it a lot. I think it's a really good level as well. I think this is a great boss level as well. It's a rush, to get through this level because everything is like boiling over, everything's falling apart. You have to like work together with each other to fight. You have to fight each other as well as work together, fixing some of the areas. I love the introduction cutscene when you have this pregnant Padme who actually looks pregnant in this, unlike Skywalker Saga, who didn't at all. I'm just not gonna stop shitting on Skywalker Saga, sorry, but but I do like that. I think that's hilarious, and I also think the ending cutscene is also hilarious. Like when she's giving birth to Luke and Leia, because it's like pop sound constantly, and it's just it's such a funny sound effect. It's funny how this game manages to do humor much better than any of the recent LEGO games. Like, the recent LEGO games try to just have a character put on like a silly face and make goofy noises or do something goofy and weird because it's quirky and funny, whereas this actually managed to do it successfully without any dialogue, which is really a testament to how brilliant the writing is, or brilliant the design for this game was. But aside from the cutscenes, the levels, of course, are great. The the working together aspect and trying to run away from the lava rising and everything falling apart is a lot of fun. There is a challenge to that. There's a lot of jumping around to avoid, dying. And of course the finale, when you fight either Obi-Wan or Anakin, depending on which character you're playing as. I love that aspect. I love that you can actually swap characters and just kill each other. I can see why this is a very popular level, why this is one of the most beloved. Is it one of my most beloved? I don't really replay this level a lot because it is quite I don't know. I don't know. I never replayed this level a huge amount, but I think it's a great level nonetheless, and I think it does deserve its S rank. I think it is a good level. So before we get to the first New Hope level, we got the special level. Now, this special level was released in the original LEGO Star Wars. So in the original LEGO Star Wars, there was a special level which was called A New Hope, which was basically the introductory to A New Hope, where you play as Vader and a Stormtrooper. You've got to find Princess Leia, and you can actually play as C-3PO as well. It's a very short level. All you have to do is just make your way around the area, and you just find Leia. It's a very, very minuscule, not very important level. Not a lot to say about this level. It's there. It's I don't know where to put it. I'm putting it below the Grievous fight. This one is a very much a non-existent level. Now for the proper first level of A New Hope, and this is such a great introduction to the game. Once again, like negotiations, this is such a great way of introducing the player to some of the ideas and some of the things that will happen in the game. So there's here is Princess Leia, here is Captain Antilles, and this is how you basically go ahead with doing these certain tasks to make your way across and give the intel to the droids. I completely screwed up my sentencing. I do apologize. I'm describing it absolutely poorly, but it's just such a great opening level. You start off similarly to negotiations. You start off in a room, and in this room, you have to make yourself. You got open it up, and in this case, you create two switches, and you pull the switches and you make yourself across. You fight a bunch of stormtroopers. I love how you can just destroy all the walls around you. That's a lot of fun. You have a mini fight with Darth Vader, which is kind of cool. There's a lot going on for this level, even though it's just on the Tantive 4. And I don't know what else to say. I just really think this is a good introductory level. Is it as good as Negotiations? Now, it is longer than Negotiations. Negotiations is a good level, but this one is longer, and it does give you a lot more to do. I think they're both more or less on the same level, but they're both really good. The next level is basically on Tatooine. One of the issues which I have with LEGO Star Wars 2's levels is that a lot of them are basically the same area, just repeated one after the other. And this is the case with the next two levels. These are both Tatooine levels. And unfortunately, I do not like this level. It's not particularly interesting. I think one of the issues is it's a desert level. It's desert levels in games suck in general because all you're doing is looking at sand, and sand is boring. And it isn't helped that LEGO Star Wars 2 kind of struggled with enemy variety, because the thing with the prequels and the original trilogy is that the originals, they didn't really have as much massive action set pieces as a lot of people might think, whereas the prequels, they had loads. And so they sort of forced in these action set pieces. In this case, the Jawas have returned and they've stolen R2 and C-3PO again, and you have to go and rescue them. And I like that idea. I like how you go inside a sandcrawler. I like how you find old Ben and you fight a bunch of Tusken Raiders. I love how you you eventually arrive at his house. But aside from that, it's it's kind of like a dull level. It's not very visually appealing. It's not very memorable in that aspect. Like, the best part about it is the sandcrawler section. Like, that is the best part. Like, you can build little droids like that are inside. The Jawas are rushing around and they will literally zap C-3PO or R2. I love that. But aside from that, it's a very dull level. I think this is better than Barakashi, but I think it's C. Like, it's a C tier level, which is okay-ish. And then we got another Tatooine level, which is incredibly forgettable, but it does have quite a few funny moments in the cutscenes, I should say. Namely, you know, when on the sand speeder and you see Archie just fall, that's hilarious. And you see him crawl the way back. But the best bit is the Marcelson Cantina. I love the cutscene in this. I love how randomly and brutally violent this cutscene is. Like, Greedo gets shot, he loses his whole body section and dies and falls apart. But it's literally like a few seconds later, milliseconds maybe, you have the big, like, spider face guy, the Aquilish, I forgot his name, who, you know, threatens Luke. He has his arm cut off, like, in the film, but then he, like, sways a bit and he falls apart. Like, it's so brutally violent for no reason. And what's even funnier is, like, if you look in the background, you can see C-3PO and R2-D2, they're like wearing disguises or trying to fit disguises on as they walk off. I think that's hilarious. This level is interesting because you sort of split up into two sections. You got one which is Obi-Wan, Luke, C-3PO and R2 trying to find Han and Chewie. And, you know, you can build a walker. I think that section's pretty fun. There's a lot going on in this level. I think this one is better than the previous level. But then you get to the Han and Chewie section. I won't lie, this is where I feel like the level sort of drags on a bit. Like, this is a level that you think it's going to be over, but no, it's actually still going. It's still going. It's still going. Which is fine because you got this final boss, which is okay. I will say this is a massive improvement over, well, I say this is far better than the Skywalker Saga, which decided to try and recreate one of the worst Lego Star Wars levels ever with its let's fix up the Millennium Falcon and ride it off, you know, just like that Resistance level from the Force Awakens. Why they think that's a good idea, I do not know. But this is a fun level. I think this is a fun level. It's not as good as it's not like good enough to be in the top 2 tiers, but it's good enough to be in B tier. I think it's probably one of the weaker ones. I'm gonna put it below Battle Castle, but above the other two. Next up is another set of levels. All 3 of them technically take place in Death Star, but these first 2 are inside the Death Star. Now, this first one is interesting. It's quite a unique gameplay style where you have to, like, disguise yourself as stormtroopers. And I love how you can kind of get away with disguising yourself as stormtroopers and not fight anyone. No one will battle you. It makes it easier. Or you can just go in guns blazing and steal a helmet at a later point. It's a very short level, this one. It's not as long as I remembered it. Like, for some reason, I remembered this one being longer, but maybe it's because it's tacked on with the next level, which I thought, you know, which I guess you could argue is a one long continuous level. I like the aspect of, like, using stormtrooper disguises to disguise. I think that's kind of a fun idea. But aside from that, it really feels like a part 1 to a long level, and it's a very simple level, but there are a lot of, like, fun Easter eggs you can find along the way, like in the elevator shafts. So I'm going to put this one like at the top of C tier. Like, aside from the Stormtrooper helmet thing, it's kind of weak in every other aspect. So the next Death Star level, I think, is a far bigger improvement, in my opinion. I love this one a lot more. This is a lot of fun, this level. So for those that don't know, this level starts off with pretty poorly, actually, I think. You know, you rescue Princess Leia and you get out the scrap bit. God, I suck at talking. But you rescue Princess Leia, you move forwards, and once you do so, you then get to this one area, which I won't lie is probably the weakest area. Like, the beginning of this is kind of weak. So basically, you have to work together to create a platform to get across to the other side, and you know, you have to push a bunch of boxes. You have to, you know, make sure everything works and is in working order, I should say. And to be fair, this does come back around at the end of the level when you have to do basically the same thing, but with the Millennium Falcon. In this case, however, I just think that the introduction for this level isn't very good. But as the level progresses, it gets better. Like, you fight shit tons of stormtroopers, you swing across, you're climbing upwards, you're battling your way up. You eventually find the Millennium Falcon. I love how you have to use like all the characters in their own individual ways to make the Millennium Falcon rise, and you have to keep pressing these levers, you gotta keep pressing these buttons, you gotta keep making it get higher and higher, and eventually you get it through the force field generator and you escape out of there, and Obi-Wan, of course, gets killed by Vader. It's quite funny seeing those two like wave at Luke, But overall, yeah, it's like, I think the first half of this level kind of sucks, but the second half is decent. I think it's somewhat better than the previous one, but it's, it's not perfect. I think it deserves to be in B tier. B tier again. Okay, so finally we're on to the Death Star battle, where you have to destroy the Death Star once and for all, and now, a lot of people, including myself, hate the space missions when it comes down to the torpedo use. Like, Lego Star Wars 2 kind of ruined the space missions. It would have been interesting to see what it would have looked like if it used the original Lego Star Wars gameplay setup. And, yeah, well, the problem with the torpedoes is you can collect like 3, maybe 4 at a time, which is fine. But they give you like all these different things to torpedo. So as a result, you're kind of forced to get loads of torpedoes, and then you don't have enough to destroy them all. So you have to go back and get even more. And it's just annoying. It's tedious. It's frustrating. Overall, I think it's an okay level. I think this is one of the better space levels, but it's, what I mean by better, I mean by it's one of the better Lego Star Wars 2 space levels, but it's not brilliant. I think it's C tier. I don't think it's dreadful, but I think it could have been better. I do like the final battle though, when you're in the trench. I love that. I think that's great. So on to the Hof Battle, and a lot of people don't like this level. A lot of people don't like this level because it's one of those, you got to drag a bomb about and blow up some gates and large walkers. I don't hate this level. I know a lot of people really don't like this level. I don't hate it that much. It's easy enough to avoid a lot of the pits and walls that you can get bombs stuck on, which I know a lot of people seem to have a tough time with. Like, I don't know why people struggle so much with the bombs. I've never really struggled with them, which is probably why I don't have much of a problem. Like, unlike Gunship Cavalry, where you have shit trying to hit you, or hell, I've seen people complain like other enemies get in the way and you accidentally blow them up. But here's the thing: hold down the fire button, you destroy the enemies in front of you. The bomb will be safe. I don't hate this level. I quite like it. I actually think this is better than the Skywalker Saga's version, which wasn't very good. Mind you, a lot of things weren't very good in Skywalker Saga. I think this is a decent level. It's not brilliant. It could have been better. I won't lie. It could have been better. But I still like it. I like it enough that I find it memorable. And of course, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film. It's better. It's not as good as Battle Cosm, but it's up there. It's just a decent level. I think people give it a hard time because they just aren't very good at the game. Let's be honest. But nonetheless, next level is a level when I was a kid. I actually quite like this level, but upon reflection, I don't really care for it that much. This is the Hof Base one, where you're having to escape Hof Base and get to the Millennium Falcon. It's a very, I don't know how to describe it. It's a very repetitive level. Like, everything feels very samey. Like, each room feels the same as the next room. There are some unique rooms, like, you got this ice slide to go down. You have to hit all these buttons, which is kind of a fun twerk. But again, I just feel like this is kind of a okayish level. It's not bad. like I said, it's not bad, but it's just, it could have been better. It could have been better, and it's a very mediocre level. The ending to it is okay, I guess. I like that you can create these big turrets and shoot stormtroopers, shoot down doors. I think that's kind of fun. It's an okay-ish level. It's not brilliant, but it's not dreadful. I'm going to put it like right in C tier. It's just an okay level. What isn't okay is quite possibly the worst space mission in LEGO Star Wars 2, the worst space mission in the original trilogy, and this is when you're in the Millennium Falcon and you have to fly around and use torpedoes against goddamn meteorites, or asteroids, I should say, whatever they're called. I don't know what the difference is. I think meteors are the ones that fall down. Asteroids are the ones that are floating about. Yeah, this is just a boring level. Like, I don't know what else to say. This is a really boring level. It feels like a filler level. Like, it really feels like a filler level. You start off with the Millennium Falcon tackling some Star Destroyers, and then you eventually go through, like, asteroid field. You go through, like, a trench almost. You can see the giant, like, death worm thing, which is kind of cool. I like that. Little bonus. But this is just such a filler, boring level. It's not remotely interesting. It sucks. Where should I put it? Do I hate General Grievous more than I hate this level? I'd rather play the General Grievous level than this one. On to Daggerbot. And Daggerbot is another one of these levels which a lot of people don't seem to like for some reason. I don't hate it. I think this is a good level. I quite like this level a lot. It could have been better, don't get me wrong, but it's not dreadful. I think people give it a hard time for whatever reason, maybe because there's not a lot that you can necessarily do. There's not a lot of enemies you fight, but I love the idea that you can get Yoda on your back and you can use him to use the Force, and you can work together with the different characters. I think that's such a great aspect to this level. I love the combination of all these different characters. I think the setting is really cool. I love the look. I love the setting. This level, has a lot of different areas. You have the dream sequence, the cave where you see the darkness and all that. You have the you have Yoda's hut area. You got the swampy marshlands. You have the X-wing in the water. I love all these aspects, and I love every moment of this level. However, and this is the big flaw with this level is a long level, and this level drags. It really drags. It gets kind of boring after a while, and it's a shame because I really like this level, but it drags. It drags a lot. This level for me goes. This level is an A tier level in my opinion. I like it a lot, but it drags, and that's the biggest problem with this level. It drags way too long. It feels like it overstays its welcome. It could have done with a bit of trimming. Next up is a fantastic boss level, and this is the fight with Vader and Luke Skywalker. I love this level. This level from beginning to end is fantastic. This is a really good level. When I was looking at the other people's rankings, this one was an S tier for very good reason. This is one of the best, if not the best, boss fight in the original trilogy era. This is the, you go, it's like the Darth Maul fight in a way. You go from one area to the next, and you keep moving on, you keep progressing, you keep seeing all these different unique environments. You keep, jumping around. You got to use, R2 and Luke for whatever reason for different tasks. You fight Vader. Vader is a lot of fun. I love the cutscene when Vader reveals he is his father, and he just picks up this photo of him and that Padme. I love that cutscene so much. This is up there with the Darth Maul fight. This is a fantastic level from beginning to end. Everything about it is great. This is how you do a fight between the two and make it effective. I'm going to put it... I don't know whether it's better than Darth Maul or not. I think those two are, so close together, which is hard to choose. Speaking of great levels, this is the thing about Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back, in terms of levels, start off really poorly, but it ends really great. The first half is kind of poor, but the second half is so good. And this final level, I love this final level. It's not as good as the previous level, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely worthy of an A tier for sure. Do I think it's as good as Daggerbot? It's around the same area, more or less. I'm just going to drop it there. Like, this is such a great level. I really love this level. You start off, obviously, with Han being frozen in carbonite. You know, you use Lando, you go across, you fight a bunch of like stormtroopers who are being swarmed, basically. You fight Boba Fett for a brief moment. You know, you go outside at some point, you go inside, outside, you know, you're all over the place. You have to use R2 or R2, I should say. You gotta use R2 to, you know, open doors. You rebuild C-3PO. I love that little segment. Like, there's so many different areas in this, and it's all in Cloud C. I won't lie, it is a little bit confusing. Like, it is a very confusing level in the sense that you're sort of I'm actually gonna elevate it a little bit because I think this is a really good level. It is sort of confusing in the sense that you do kind of get lost sometimes, but at the same time, this is such a great level. It's linear, sure, and I love that you can use all these puzzles to, get C-3PO and R2-D2 across, platforms and what have you. It's a fun level. It's got, a lot of environments. It's visually a beautiful level. Like, Cloud City in general is a very, very visually beautiful planet in Star Wars. There's nothing bad I can really say about it other than, you might get a little bit lost. I do think the Boba Fett bit is kind of a little bit lame, but nonetheless, fantastic level. So we're now on to the final film in Star Wars, and no, there was no other films after this. This is Return of the Jedi, and I will say this right now, Return of the Jedi probably has some of the best levels in the entire game, although there is one level which does kind of suck. But this first level in particular, I love this level. I remember when I was a kid, I used to replay this level all the time. I was such a fan of this level. This level is the Jabba's Palace level. You can use, Princess Leia disguised as a bounty hunter. You could use explosives for the first time, which is kind of cool. You have Chewbacca as well. You fight the Gamorrean guards, which are a tough challenge. They're similar to the Magna guards, and since they really kick your ass a little bit, you find Luke at one point, you play around with him, and you eventually rescue Han. But it doesn't end there. You then have the Rancor Fight. Now, the Rancor Fight does have a glitch, a game-breaking glitch, which can self-lock you, which is really fucking annoying. And that is, sometimes when you're on the third phase of the Rancor Fight, he will go to the gate where he's meant to be crushed to death, but the levers won't work. And I won't lie, that one glitch does piss me off a lot, and it has happened quite a few times whenever I played this game. But one glitch doesn't really, constitute to a bad level, because this is a great level, a really good level. It's not S tier great, but it's great nonetheless. It's ahead of Cloud C, below Pod Racer, because pod racing is just too much fun. So the next level is also another great level. This is the Barge Fight. Once again, Skywalker Saga really missed the ball when it came to this level, because this level is such a great progressional level, in my opinion. Like, you start off, it's similar to Revenge of the Sith in the way where the second level is like so insane with the amount of shit that's happening and stuff you have to do that, you have to keep pushing forward. And you get into these different wild areas, and it gets even more, amps up the atmosphere. But I digress. Like, this is an area where you start off on like the first barge, you make your way across, you fight Boba Fett, you get rid of him once and for all. You finally get onto Jabba's barge, and you have to go rescue Princess Leia. You finally rescue Princess Leia, and there's a fun fact with Princess Leia. So for those that don't know, Princess Leia, if you press, I think it's the B button on hold, the B button on the Xbox controller, circle button on PlayStation, she will do a sexy dance. I'm not even kidding. Slave Leia will do a sexy dance if you hold the B button. I think that's quite a funny little feature. But yeah, this is just such a great level. I think this is better than the Droid Factory. And I'm going to be controversial, but I actually think it's better. Actually, no, I don't know. I don't know if it's better than... I'm going to put it in S tier. I think this is such a great level. So the next level, this is a controversial one because, once again, this one seems to be hated by people. I don't know why. I quite like it. This is the speed bike chase. My God, I'm tripping over my own words. Phlegmy throat. So yeah, this one gets a lot of flack because it's a very long level if you don't know what you're doing. Unlike the Skywalker Saga, where it basically breaks the game if you play this level. But here, it doesn't break the game. You can just go through. You can go through like different platforms. You can get mini kits that way. You enter different areas. You can proceed to build a walker, destroy these like satellite dish things, and you open up this one gate that you need to get to. I quite like this level. I like how you can shoot down the scout troopers. I like how you can go through the forest at high speeds. You can get all these mini kits. I love the controls for this. Is it repetitive? Yes, it is repetitive. I won't lie. It's a very repetitive level, but it's still a great level. I still find myself enjoying it. And I love the ending when you're fighting the giant walker and you can use that to destroy all these satellite dishes. And it's just so great to control a giant walker. I think this is a decent level. It's not great, but it's decent. I think this is... I'm personally going to put it in B tier. I do like it that much. Next up is another great level, and this is the Battle of Endor level. And this one is where you can play as the Ewoks, and you start off in the Ewok village, which is nice and peaceful. It's a lot of, you're in the treetops and what have you, and then sort of stormtroopers, scout troopers start attacking. You make your way down. You're in this foresty area, and I love going through this foresty area. I love that you can split off into two different paths and create like a bridge upwards, get the droids to go across like platform or ramps, I should say, and the other characters can jump up and all. I love that aspect. I love that you can just take control of walkers and just fight your way through the final area when you have to, place bombs or build bombs and you go through it. I think that's quite a lot of fun. This one's a fun level. I think this is a fun level. I love the environment. I love the progression from up in the trees all the way into the Imperial base. I think that's such a great aspect to it. The music as well. The music for this level is also top notch. I love it. Don't know what else to say. I just really, really like this level. I think this is better than the other Ewok level. I'm gonna put it in A tier again because I think this is just a really good level. It's not as good as Jabba's Pass. I think Jabba's Pass is better. So next up is a very weak boss fight. For me, this is the weakest of Return of the Jedi. And it's quite disappointing as well. So this is the boss fight between Emperor Palpatine, Vader, and Luke. I like the idea that Luke and Vader work together to defeat Palpatine. I love that so much. I think that's such a great idea. I think that's such a great, for gameplay purposes. I love that you can use both characters to make platforms or, control elevators to make your way all the way up top. However, this is a dead easy fight. And it suffers from the general Grievous issue of it's just in one area and that's it. There's not much challenge. You just chase after Palpatine, you beat him up a bit, you confront him, maybe you electrify the floors a bit, there's a little bit more to this than like the Grievous fight, but it's disappointing in my opinion. I think this is a disappointing fight. It could have been better. I do like that he's got extra health, and I love fighting the Royal Guards, but the Royal Guards can be easily killed by Jedi slams, which, doesn't really make them that impressive. Yeah, this could have been a better level. I'm going to put it it's not as bad as some of all these C tier lists, but it's definitely a C tier one. Disappointing. And the final level in LEGO Star Wars, which is the destruction of the second Death Star. And again, I quite like this one. This is quite a good, flying mission. I think this is probably the better one or the best one in the second game, or LEGO Star Wars 2, I should say. Unlike other flying missions, this one actually is decent. So you're inside, you start off outside, you shoot down a few Star Destroyers, which is a lot of fun in my opinion. You make yourself inside the Death Star 2, and I love being inside of here and just blow up all these, you know, scaffolding, I guess you could say, holding up the Death Star 2. I love that aspect. I love the final area where you just destroy the Death Star and you fly out. That's such great. It is basically a Destructathon. It's like the Battle of Coruscant, where it is just a dead simple level, but there's a little bit more going on here. And I think this is one of the better of the flying missions, and it's certainly the best in the new Lego Star Wars 2 flying missions. It uses torpedoes quite a bit, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't use it like so much that it's frustrating. It uses it just enough to, you know, give you a bit of challenge but not piss you off. So overall, that's my ranking of the Lego Star Wars levels. So for me, Vader versus Luke and the Darth Maul fight are the best levels in the game. Those two are just top notch. They're both very similar levels. It's really hard to pick between the two, which is better. Obviously, I've put Maul ahead of Vader and Luke, but honestly, those two are so interchangeable. The worst levels are both from Attack of the Clones, these being the Bounty Hunter Pursuit and Gunship Cavalry. They are terrible levels. I know a lot of people would prefer Gunship Cavalry, or would think Gunship Cavalry is worse than Bounty Hunter Pursuit, but Bounty Hunter Pursuit for me is just a far more dull level. At least Gunship Cavalry has some stuff going for it. That one doesn't. It's interesting looking at this because it seems like a lot of like the best levels tend to be like you know, more explorative levels, like ones that progress from one area to the next, and you like see all these different like areas, these different like, you know, moments from the films but transferred into game levels. And some of like the worst levels are ones where they are so simplistic that they're just like they could be done like in like a few minutes, like 5 minutes maybe. And it's quite interesting seeing that, because one of the problems with most modern Lego games is that they went with that whole let's just make really short level route and not care about them, you know. And ironically, they were the worst levels in my opinion, when they're short, when they don't really have much going for them and they're forgettable. Whereas some of the better levels are ones which made you explore a little bit, had a lot of vast areas. Like the Kamino one, for example, has all these secret like areas you can go to. You see this dance party at one point. You can see you know, this platform area, which is great, you know. And same with Darth Maul, like you have this area like right above like the like generator area, which is kind of cool. Negotiations also had secret rooms. You know, there's a lot more going on with like those levels compared to the worst levels, where there's just not a lot going on. They're just kind of there. Some of the more mediocre levels, like the middle tiers, which are like D, B, and C, like the problems which those ones have tend to be like problems which like one half of it is good, one half is bad. Like the D tier, there's mostly bad stuff, but it's also not like dreadful. Like you can at least play them, they're good. C tier, I would say, is like average. You know, it's okay. You can like, they're passable. Whereas like B tier, like there's a lot of good things about them, but like there's always like one massive flaw that kind of hinders them, like whether it's the Hof one with the bombs or the Barakashi being way too easy. But overall, it's a fun game. Like it's a great game. Like Lego Star Wars Complete Saga is still the best Lego game. Lego Batman 1, I should say, is the second best, I would argue. And it's a shame that like Lego Star Wars hasn't really been as good as this one game. Like Lego Star Wars The Clone Wars was a really interesting game. It was a really, really interesting game. Like what I love about Lego Star Wars The Clone Wars is that it goes through like different like episodes from the show, and you know there's all these like interesting like battle arenas and what have you. I think there's a lot of like it definitely upped the enemy count, and you know you got all these different Jedi and all these different scenarios. I think that was decent, but it just didn't have the charm that this one had. Like I felt like Lego Star Wars The Clone Wars was like when they started going the let's just be childish and goofy territory, which is kind of like silly in my opinion. Like, at least it's not as bad as, like, I forgot who it was, but one of the creators like said something along the lines of, you know, and this was for the Lego Jurassic World game, where like killing people is wrong and like it's too scary for kids, but then like Lego Star Wars Complete Saga has like several people like fall apart and die in brutal means. Hell, Qui-Gon gets stabbed and you literally see him like pop open a little bit. You know, I don't think death is necessarily, you know, scary for kids. Like, for fuck's sake, they would have seen the films, they know that happens. And Skywalker Saga, like, I've been shitting on it throughout this video and I will continue shitting on it. Like, that was a game that just disappointed me. Like, I was really looking forward to that game. I played it quite a bit, and my god, like, all my fears that I had for the game, like it having short levels, concentrating more on open world than it did like actual gameplay, suffering from quantity over quality, all came true as a result of that game. And my god, I was disappointed by Skywalker Saga. Like, it could have been better in my opinion, but thankfully we do have the complete saga, and that's all that you really need from Lego for the time being in terms of Star Wars stuff, and maybe of course Clone Wars, but don't play Force Awakens. That game is awful. That's easily the worst of the Lego games. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this ranking and my little discussion of Lego games and why they suck these days, and why the originals were so good. Hope you enjoyed this tier list, and I'll see you next time.